Okay, welcome everybody. It's Mr. Adams here, and today we're going to be doing a character profile activity, and we're going to be focusing on a character in one of Roald Dahl's books, and the book is called The Witches, and it's a very, very good book. One of my favourites by Roald Dahl, and the character we're going to be listening to or hearing the description of is the Grand High Witch. And Roald Dahl has done a fantastic job of creating such an evil, wicked, despicable character in the Grand High Witch. And the way he describes her is absolutely mesmerizing and fantastic, and it really helps you to visualize, all these traits of the witch. His words let you hear her voice and see what she looks like, and the description of her face and her eyes is just amazing. And it's really going to help you to do the activity sheet after you've listened to this. Now we're going to be listening to her description, which comes about 60 odd pages into the book. Our little friend, the boy, has found himself locked in a room full of witches, and the Grand High Witch is addressing all of the witches, and where she removes her disguise to find out that underneath her beautiful mask there is an evil, disgusting looking witch. So I'm going to start reading that to you now, and after you've listened to that, we can go on and do the activity. So here it comes. It comes from the chapter Frizzled Like a Fritter. All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless in their chairs and staring as though hypnotized at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. That somebody was another woman. The first thing I noticed about this woman was her size. She was tiny, probably no more than 4.5 feet tall. She looked quite young. I guessed about 25 or 26. And she was very pretty. She had on a rather stylish long black dress that reached right to the ground, and she wore black gloves that came up to her elbows. Unlike the others, she wasn't wearing a hat. She didn't look to me like a witch at all, but she couldn't possibly not be one. Otherwise, what on earth was she doing up there on that platform? And why, for heaven's sake, were all the other witches gazing at her with such a mixture of adoration, awe, and fear? Very slowly, the young lady on the platform raised her hands to her face. I saw her gloved fingers unhook something from behind her ears, and then she caught hold of her cheeks and lifted her face clean away. The whole of that pretty face came away in her hands. It was a mask. As she took off the mask, she turned sideways and placed it carefully upon a small table nearby. And when she turned round again and faced us, I very nearly screamed out loud. That face of hers was the most frightful and frightening thing I have ever seen. Just looking at it gave me the shakes all over. It was so crumpled and wizened, so shrunken and shriveled, it looked as though it had been pickled in vinegar. It was a fearsome and ghastly sight. There was something terribly wrong with it, something foul and putrid and decayed. It seemed quite literally to be rotting away at the edges, and in the middle of the face, around the mouth and cheeks, I could see the skin all cankered and worm-eaten, as though maggots were working away in there. There are times when something is so frightful you become mesmerized by it and can't look away. I was like that now. I was transfixed. I was numbed. I was magnetized by the sheer horror of this woman's features. But there was more to it than that. There was a look of serpents in those eyes of hers as they flashed around the audience. I knew immediately, of course, that this was none other than the Grand High Witch herself. I knew also why she had worn a mask. She could never have moved around in public, let alone book in at a hotel with her real face. Everyone who saw her would have run away screaming. "The doors!" shouted the Grand High Witch in a voice that filled the room and bounced around the walls. "Are they chained and bolted?" "The doors are chained and bolted, your grandness," answered a voice in the audience. The brilliant snake's eyes that were set so deep in that dreadful, rotting, worm-eaten face glared unblinkingly at the witches who sat facing her. "You may remove your gloves," she shouted. Her voice, I noticed, had that same hard metallic quality as the voice of the witch I had met under the conker tree. Only it was far louder and much harsher. It rasped, it grated, it snarled, it scraped, it shrieked, and it growled. Alright, so there's a description of the Grand High Witch, and in there you can hear all sorts of great things. Your senses, like your hearing, you can hear what her voice sounds like. You can see the fire in her eyes. You might be able to, I don't know, dare say it, smell the rotting skin on her face and notice in your own brain and visualize in your own mind what that terrible, terrible face might actually look like. And that's going to give you a great help when it comes to filling out the character profile sheet that you need to go on and do now. So once you've clicked off this video, in this video clip, you can then go and get started on that.